What is up, everybody? Here we are at the Block of Horror. Welcome to the Half Hour Horror. I'm Aaron McLane, and I'm here with some special guests. I co-host, as always. Hey, it's Chase. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, I am doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing really well, man. And a guest, you might have saw him 2 weeks ago, but he's back because he said, I want to talk about some ooey gooey melty movies. And we said,
Yes.
we got to do that.
Let's do it.
Christopher Carlson, welcome, man.
What's going on, guys? Good morning.
Oh,
Good
good
afternoon, I
Good
guess.
morning.
Yeah, it's afternoon here, but
Same
you're
here.
on in LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man, ooey gooey melt movies. What a great idea. This is such a small subsect, but it's like in that Venn diagram of body horror, which we did a whole episode on body horror. It fits well with like the whole push of the substance right now. I watched Demi Moore on the Hot One show. If you guys ever watched that show about eating hot
She was
wings.
on it?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Not only was she on it, but she was just like, this is baby stuff. This stuff isn't hot. Do you have
Hell
hotter?
yeah.
And
Hell
she just crushed this thing. And me and my in-laws every year we do the gauntlet. We get the big
Oh,
pack
yeah.
of wing sauce and do it up. And those last three, I'm hallucinating. I'm crying. I'm
Dude.
snot's coming out my face. I'm like,
The bomb will ruin your life, man.
Just-
The bomb is no joke.
nothing good about it. Big shout out to everybody who's watching us. I see Karen is in the theater. Shout out to Karen in
Hello,
the Province
Karen.
Theater.
Hell yeah.
Izzy out on YouTube. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for saying
What's up,
hi.
Izzy?
Yeah. Love to see everybody join us on a Saturday. So let's dive into it. Ooey gooey gross ass melt movies, the melt movie subgenre. I mean, I think there's one that like comes to mind, and this is the one that Chris brought up. Why don't you start with you, Chris? What is for you the penultimate melt movie?
I was thinking about how I got introduced to this movie. I don't know if you guys watched The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. And I think the first movie was The Stuff, which I had not seen before, which is kind of like
Love it.
kind of a melt movie, I guess, in a
Definitely
way.
on my list for sure.
And then the next movie was Street Trash, which I had never heard of in my life. And boy, was I in for a wild time on that movie. It is just ridiculous and amazing and so disgusting and silly and goofy and very politically incorrect. And yeah, it's just a phenomenal movie. I didn't even know like melt was a subgenre, I think, until that whole Joe Bob episode. And I was like, oh shit, that makes sense.
It is.
We normally just see one like melting scene, like
yes.
from like Indiana Jones. Everybody remembers that, the arc opening, and then all the Nazis getting melted. Good, fuck Nazis.
Yeah, I love it.
But that's not a melt movie. A whole movie needs to be about the melting itself, which is Street Trash was the perfect movie for that.
It is so wild. So I have a very bizarre time. First time I ever saw this too was I was living in LA. A buddy of mine who I went to college was like, let's hang. I was like, all right. I show up. He's like, bad news, bro. I got to work. But you can hang here and watch some movies. You should check out Street Trash. And he popped this movie on, and I'm just sitting in this guy's living room while he does work in his office. And I'm just like, what did you show me? What is this? The weirdest game of catch I've ever seen. We'll get to it. It is so bizarre and great because you walk away being like, wow, my eyes have been assaulted, but I am like, I'm loving this. It is an amazing film. And I put it in that category with like a John Waters movie. That's just like, fuck you if you don't like it, but have fun. Yeah. Just have fun. We're having fun. You should have fun too. Get your hands dirty a little bit. And it does not care. And it's just there to have a good time. And the plot of Street Trash is pretty straightforward. There's some illegal street hooch called Viper. That is it's like a little bottle of booze. And when somebody drinks from it, they melt. And
the dude just finds it like in the basement or something like that.
His liquor store,
like, oh, cool, this is expired alcohol. I'm just gonna sell it for $1.
Sell it to all the homeless people that come in my store for $1.
Those poor homeless people.
I know it's awful, but here's the weirdest thing: it's rooted in I don't know if it's true stories, but true conspiracy theories of the idea that the government would infect the undesirable populations with tainted drugs, tainted booze, manufactured stuff. And that's what in this movie, it's like the government created this shit to kill off the homeless people. That's
some Chud vibes.
Chud vibes. That's based in some real things. There is instances of government operations of like gnarly tainting crack and doing things like that, or tainting acid to try and kill the hippies or whatever it is. So it's kind of based on a true idea, or at least a true conspiracy theory, which is just wild. And then this movie's just like having fun with it. The first scene, the guy drinks it on a toilet, melts into the toilet, all sorts of different rainbow colors blasting out of him, just
purples
melting
and
into
greens
it,
and reds,
trying to flush it. His arm pops off. You're like,
so good.
It reminds me of Train Spotting, the grossest bathroom in London. The scene where he drops his crank down the toilet and crawls all the way into it and comes out. Just disgusting. Oh yeah, Chud. Since somebody mentioned Chud, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Yeah.
Not to be overshadowed by Bud the Chud.
Bud the Chud. Bud the Chud. What a song, by the way. I love that song. I don't know if you guys know that song. It's so good.
Classic. Melt movies are wild, man. And Street Trash is like, I think probably one of the greatest ones. Chase, you saw Street Trash for the first time doing it for this show.
Oh, really?
What did you think?
Oh man, it's wild. Like, it's weird. It goes from like a melt horror movie to like, I don't know, then it comes like kind of like a homeless buddy comedy. Like a homeless community buddy comedy. Of course, we got to talk about the Game of Catch.
Game of Catch. A guy drinks this stuff and his dick falls off, and they decide to play.
No, he doesn't drink it. So what happened is he's taking a piss. He's taking a piss through a hole, and a Vietnam vet with PTSD.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Is getting pissed on, and he cuts his dick off. Yeah. Then he's like, "Oh, so give it to me." Yeah. Then they start playing keep away with
Monkey
his dick,
in the middle.
With his wang doodle.
He's in a pickle. They're literally playing a game of pickle with his pickle. It's one of those scenes where you're just like, what has this movie become? What am I watching?
Yeah.
But that movie is also like, you made it through the melting, stay for the dick catch, and you're like, all right, I'm here, movie. You got me. I love it.
You guys talking about that, it reminded me of our conversation about The Substance and how, like, in the beginning, it's that shrimp scene, which is like, if you can get past the shrimp scene, you're going to get to the rest of it. And like, it's that first melt scene happens before the dick chopping off scene. And it's like, you know what you're in for with the first melting scene. This is silly ridiculousness. Yeah. And then you get into the rest of it.
It's a fun movie to watch with people because they don't know what they're in for. And I think the people who are ready for it are like having a great time, and the people who aren't ready for it are trapped. But it's not me.
My partner, when I watched it with him for the first time, I was sitting there laughing my ass off. He was just sitting there like
confused.
And then it was like, so we had just watched over the past, like, just a span of like 3 nights, Toxic Avenger, then we did Body Melt, then we did Street Trash, and it was like the next night he was like,
oh my god,
the next night he looked at me, he was like, can we not watch a Melt movie tonight? Can we watch something different?
I think one of the truths, a hard truth of Melt movies, is most of them are not very good, which is too bad, but they're fun. And here's the thing, we used to do something at our apartment at the Launchpad called Shitty Movie Sunday. We get as many people together as possible. We watch the worst movie we possibly could and just have a great time and laugh. And there's an ideology behind it. If you're trying too hard to do the full loop, I'm so bad, I'm good, it doesn't work. But if you are earnestly trying to make a fun movie with your heart, you just don't have the budget, that's going to come through as that's going to work. That's when that cycle works. So bad it's good. And it's like Hobo with a Shotgun pulled this off. Street Trash pulls this off. Lots of movies can pull it off.
Machete.
Machete pulled this off, but when people are like, "Oh,
Unfortunately, not
Sharknado,"
Machete kills.
yeah, but then
Let's
people are
not
like,
talk about that one.
people are like Sharknado, and I'm like, Sharknado was trying too hard. I appreciate it because here's what
They are.
Sharknado did. Sharknado exposed the so bad it's fun to a broad audience, and everybody was like, even my father-in-law was like Sharknado, and I'm like, I love that you love that. I got some movies for you, man.
Yeah,
I
let
got
me
a
show you
lot
the
of
real stuff.
yeah, let me show you some real stuff. But there's a lot of movies that pull it off, and they're just having a great time. And having a low budget doesn't need to stop you if you are making a good movie with your whole heart. The first Toxic Avenger does that perfectly. Some of the later Toxic Avengers do not. They're like, I'm just going to be as gross and stupid as possible, and then you're like, well, you just made a gross and stupid movie.
Yeah.
The remake of Street Trash came out this year, 2024. Ryan Coogler. I watched that for this this episode, and it's trying to go so bad it's good. Definitely has some great melting. I will give him hats off for the melting. But he's kind of doing this John Waters thing where he's trying to be so gross at times and funny gross. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the jokes were just combed out of Reddit. And it's like when your friend sends you a meme you've seen before and you're like, yeah, I guess. Okay. I've seen it. Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't land with me. But there's part of me that's like, you know what? Ryan Coogler made a movie, put his heart into making a movie. I give you props for making a movie. I don't want to knock independent horror because we need more of it. We need more horror to get out there and get in theaters. And, with Hard Eyes coming out in the next couple of weeks, that's an independent horror film. Werewolves, independent horror film. So it's like, it's hard for me to knock it, but at the same time, it was an adult dose of like, cringe because there's a dirty puppet in it that says nasty things and does nasty things, and that was just exhausting. Normally I'd love that. Like, if you want a good dirty puppet movie, watch Frankie Frico by the guys who did Psycho Gorman. Like, those are fun, schlocky, shitty good times. But this one was almost trying too hard to be like, it's like when your kid like says duty and you laugh and then they say it 100 times.
It sounds like it's one of those full moon features that distribution company.
Oh, they still owe me money, man. Full Moon Features.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Full Moon Features is one of those companies. Charlie Band, man. If you ever worked for him, like anytime you meet somebody where everyone has been stiffed by Charlie Band at least once in their life. Like,
lovely.
Yeah, Charlie Band is notorious for he'd take your money to make one movie and show up with two movies that are both terrible. He also, while making Castle Freak, or was it Castle Freak? He was making a movie in a castle. And the townspeople basically were like, wait, you haven't been paying us. You said you were going to pay us. And the townspeople basically pitchfork mobbed his place. And
I think that was Castle Freak. I'm pretty sure. And they had to do reshoots or something like that somewhere else.
With the one with Barbara Crampton, right?
Yeah.
Castle Freak.
Castle Freak. But yeah, the townspeople like pitchfork mobbed it because they were like, we're not getting paid, get them. And they had to like run out of there. So yeah, the new Street Trash, I think for hardcore fans only. But hats off to, you know what, you wrote a script, you made a movie, and you got it done. Not a lot of people can do that, and I might give it another shot just to try and support.
I gotta watch it. I didn't know it existed until just the other day, honestly.
Yeah, but the same guy did Fried Berry. So how do you feel about Fried Berry?
Oh, well, yeah. That movie's weird. It's a lot of weird, very weird.
Street Trash.
And like, I felt like that was just the movies that are weird for weird's sake. I don't think are good. Like, there has to be, the weirdness has to be rooted in something that you can like identify with. There has to be rules and like all that stuff. And you're like, oh, I get it. Even if it's not good, you're like, I understand the world I'm in.
Yep. And I think that is a very good point because as we just lost David Lynch, R.I.P., it's one of those arguments of like, he did a lot of weird stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But he was smart with his weird, really smart with his weird. He also didn't need to defend his weird because that's just what he did. And I think he's one of the only people who gets away with being that weird because a lot of people who try to like, often tried to be replicated, can't pull it off. If you put a lady with a pet log in your movie, Only he can pull that off. And that was one of the
Yeah.
funniest things to me. And it was just because anybody who asked him about it, he'd be like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean? That's not normal to you. He just was that guy. And I'm like, all right, that's great. That's great. Oh man.
Now,
So
do we
Street Trash.
consider Troll 2 a melt movie?
Yeah, it's on many a list of
Okay.
melting. Again, I don't know if it is it's not about melting, but there is a lot of melting in it.
Yes.
Again, delightfully terrible. Troll 2.
One of the best worst
Renowned.
movies ever.
Yep. Renowned. I love
So
that
good.
the kids only thought of like, how do I keep my parents from eating the food that's going to make them melt is to pee on it.
Yeah. you don't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it.
I won't allow it. Right. There's a lot of melt movies are wild. Another one that I have on my list that I love is the 1988 Blob.
Yes.
And this one,
Ooh,
what a phenomenal movie. I saw you were watching it the other night.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
good.
Oh my God.
this is one of my all-time top favorite movies.
Oh, easy. I watched this movie for the first time only a couple years ago, just because it had been recommended on a bunch of like subreddits, and I was like not expecting anything that happens in that movie to happen. That first like 20 minutes, I was like, what? Where are we going? Like, holy shit, this movie went like 100 miles an hour in a second. Wow. And then it just keeps going, and you're like, holy fuck.
It's so fun. The thing that I love about it is you got a Frank Darabont script, okay?
Yeah.
Frank Darabont, who went on to make The Walking Dead, a lot of Walking Dead alum are in this movie. The characters are so good. You know, you got the tough kid, you got the high school cheerleader.
It's a tight script. It's a really tight script. It's great.
You got a young Shawnee Smith who would later become an icon with Saw as Amanda. A young Kevin Dillon. To me, one of the scenes that stands out the most is when Shawnee Smith and the two kids are in the sewers and they're trying to escape the sewers, and one of the kids gets dragged off.
Yeah,
So
you don't expect it at all.
Melted. Oh my God. They
like
killed the
everything in that
fucking
movie.
kid.
Yeah, you just don't expect these things to happen. It's super metal. It's like, wow. And it was like a national, like, it's a big release movie. It's not like, these independent schlock fests. It's like a remake of a classic.
Right.
And a Steve McQueen classic, which is so great because you watch the Steve McQueen classic and he's like a 45-year-old man being like, I'm in high school. That high school football game sure was great, kid. But like, I love the original. That was one I had on VHS. I'd watch that all the time. And when the blob encases the diner, I love the effects in the original. But this one, and we talked about this in our remakes episode, was like, what makes a good remake is when you have a better story to tell, which this one didn't really change the story much, but made the characters more relatable to the 80s as opposed to the 50s. Then the special effects are insanely good.
So good.
I work in special effects. I work in visual effects. And to this day, there are parts of how this is done that you're just like, how did they plan that? And I'm convinced a lot of it was they just got a bunch of goopy jelly silicone, poured it down a hallway, and what it did was like, well, that looked awesome, and it just worked. The miniature work, the puppeteering work, the gore in it is just all phenomenal. Directed by Chuck Russell, obviously, who did A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, one of my favorite movies, and
another Frank Darabont team up there.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, when you got. I mean, Frank Darabont was one of the best, still is. I mean, he's still alive. He's one of the best writers to ever do the damn thing. And, the characters were so real. And then Chuck Russell just knew how to film for visual effects. I mean, same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Like, it looked so good and the effects were so good. And he knew how to shoot for that, which I love this movie so much. I think it's one of the best, up there with The Thing, as like how you do a remake, how you bring special effects.
Oh, yeah.
The Thing is,
absolutely.
The Blob is more fun to me. The Thing is amazing.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I think everybody is like, The Thing is one of
everyone I've shown the remake of The Blob to, they're all like, oh, The Blob, that's not going to be whatever. And I'm like, just trust me, watch this. And then everyone's like, holy shit, this is What? That just happened? I'm like, yeah, get ready for the rest of the movie. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going.
I love it. I love it. And it's just like the big pink blob is just so cool.
Gorgeous. My favorite one too is when the waitress is in the phone booth.
Incredible.
Dude, yeah.
Oh my God.
Just
What a
incredible.
scene.
Because she's trying to call the sheriff. And then the sheriff's face like pushes against the glass and it's all melted. And then all of a sudden it's just crack, crack, crack.
Yeah.
And it's shot from above. Boom!
Yeah, that dummy just like flies right up to the camera. It's great.
Amazing.
Amazing. I get that. That's one of those ones you're like, how do you plan for that? How do you art direct it? And I think they just did it.
Yeah.
I think they just smashed a miniature phone booth with a sweet little model inside and it exploded and they just went for it, looked awesome.
I mean, I think a lot of the things in the 80s was just like fuck around and find out kind of deals. Like, well, this is what the idea is. Let's try to do it. And then hopefully it looks good. And you were working with a bunch of really talented special effects people back then.
Yeah. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of modern day horror movies is a lot of the 80s horror movies, like you said, they're just like, let's just do it, just see how it goes. Now it's just way too perfected and polished. And I think that's what's missing.
Not as much play. Like, I don't think people are really playing when they make movies anymore.
The, twice now, The Blob has been up for a remake multiple times. Rob Zombie had the rights briefly, and it's and it's
hey now, I'm a Rob Zombie fanboy.
I like Rob Zombie. I just don't know if The Blob, like, I haven't seen him do a creature feature. I've seen him do psycho killer movies, which he does. That's his thing.
He's great with that.
Yeah, does great psycho killer movies.
And then the Munsters.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
that. I won't defend that one. Even I won't defend that one.
Okay.
But the Blob is a creature feature, and how do you do that well? And the thing is, like, when the talks that I've had as a VFX supervisor, it's all, how do we do this in CGI? And it's like, please don't.
Rob Zombie goes, it needs more Sherry Moon Zombie.
Yeah.
She's the Blob.
I just think it won't have the same impact because look, you can do some incredible things in CGI. That's my job. But at the end of the day, it's like the Blob is not the thing to do CGI on.
No.
Like, I just don't think it's just going to have the impact. It's not going to look as cool. It's not like the real feeling of slime is hard to replicate. So I don't know. We'll see. I just don't want a soulless remake that has nothing to say with slicker visuals. We don't. That doesn't make a good remake.
I really hope that starts to die out. And wasn't there a movie recently that had like amazing, besides The Substance, which had a shitload of practical effects? Hasn't there been another movie recently that had really good like practical special effects that was like brought to the forefront of? Was it Terrifier 3?
I mean, Terrifier 3 had a lot of really good gory practical effects. Werewolves had a lot of cool practical werewolves in it. I mean, people are coming back around to it. It's just, when at the height of the 80s, when that was like your main magic making tool, like people figured out some amazing things. And I think now it's like, if you come back to it and you found a way, because like, here's a little inside baseball. If I were slated to do The Blob, I would scan the environment, 3D print the environment, and then run actual slime through everything so it interacted with it and then composited that into the scene. That way you're still getting the best of both worlds. You're getting to do cool digital things while still getting the practical slime.
That's like what they did in the 88 version is they did a shitload of compositing, which doesn't look good. Like it doesn't look like that's the worst visual effects is when they have the composite going on. Whatever it was, rear screen almost looked like. And
I'll be right back.
Nowadays, we could easily just do exactly what you said. I think that's a great idea to do a 3D scan and 3D modeling and just run slime through it and see what happens.
You let the slime be the thing, because there's the only thing that I think like a digital thing would be able to do that you couldn't really do practically well is like if you wanted to keep the corpses inside, like a gelatinous cube, like you see bodies in there being like, and it's like there could be a fun way to show that, or like show some dissolving and some melting using some digital effects that might be fun, but like let that be the icing. Don't let that be the cake, man.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
use visual effects to do things that can't be done, and use it to. But like I think a lot of times people just use it because it's you don't have to spend the time on set where it's expensive. You're spending the same amount of money, honestly. Like I think practical and
Yeah.
digital are comparable in cost, but it's the what it costs to do it on set. Because if your goopy blob doesn't do what you want it to do, you have to do it multiple times, and that takes a lot of time. And time on set is money. So
Yeah.
what's another movie? What should we talk about? What do we got?
Before that,
Yeah,
if I want to do a little plug,
plug it.
it's on Amazon. If you're fans of the Blob, get the Scream Factory Blu-ray. It's incredible.
It has decent features too, which
Yeah.
there have not been enough special features about that movie because like I said, I always wanted to know what it is. You know, how did you make
Yeah.
that thing? Because it's so good. And that DVD has a few behind the scenes special features that are pretty decent. That Blu-ray.
Well, and the Blu-ray, you know, I was doing some research before our talk today about Street Trash, and apparently they have a whole documentary on that Blu-ray as well about like the making of Street Trash, because it was done all by college kids, and their professor was like the producer, and he documented pretty much the entire thing as they were making it. So there's just a shitload of behind the scenes apparently of Street Trash.
That's
I
amazing.
have it in my Target cart, online cart right now. I might go ahead and purchase that just to get it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And a lot of people from that movie as well came into Hollywood, even though it's a shitty ass movie. Bryan Singer was a PA on the movie, which we don't need to talk about him and his terrible behavior. But also Jim Murrow, the director, became like one of the most prolific Steadicam operators in Hollywood. And
huge director of photography. Like he did Crash and
he was
Chronicles
the
of
DP
Riddick.
of Crash. He was a Steadicam on like all of James Cameron's movies back in the 90s,
wow.
Titanic and all that shit. And
the Bryan Singer X-Men movies.
Well,
wow. I mean,
I don't say Bryan Singer X-Men. I just go 20th Century Fox X-Men.
I like that better.
Than Bryan Singer. Fuck him.
Jesus.
What a piece of shit.
But I do have one I really want to talk about. That's on my list. Another really good one, Cabin Fever.
Oh my God, pancakes.
Pancakes.
What a weirdo movie that is, though.
This movie rubbed me the wrong way because I paid money to see it, and I saw it in
I'm so
theaters,
sorry.
and I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know that it was a comedy, so I'm expecting it to be like a horror movie. And when Pancakes is happening, I was like,
yeah, I think that's everyone's reaction is like, what the fuck is this?
A boy. First of all, you have a boy with blonde hair and a Zooey Deschanel and New Girl haircut.
Yep. With the bangs. He got bangs.
A man just rolls up in a Jeep. Pancakes. And he just starts flipping.
He starts doing karate. In slow-mo.
In slow-mo. There's times when I have a hard time, like I don't deal well with certain levels of sarcasm. And this movie was just like over my head the whole time. So for example, I love Malcolm in the Middle. Bryan Cranston, awesome. Bryan Cranston's new show is coming out. It's called Breaking Bad. I know nothing about it. I'm going to sit down and watch the pilot. Watching it, and I'm like, this isn't funny. Cancer's not funny. Why are they making that a joke about that? And somebody's like, it wasn't a joke. The show's not a comedy. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's not. It wasn't meant to be a comedy. And I was like, oh, well, in that case, it's actually pretty good. But it's like when you take a sip of one thing and it's like, oh, who put milk in here? Like your brain can't comprehend that it is not what you think it is. And I thought I was watching a horror movie. I had never really seen horror comedy in Shaun of the Dead hadn't come out yet. Horror comedy wasn't really that sort of a thing. And Cabin in the
this was coming
Cabin
out.
Fever just hit me the wrong way.
I didn't know it was supposed to be a comedy. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Literally until you just said that, I was like, it's a comedy? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, it came out around the time where kind of the post-Scream meta slashers were starting to die off
Yeah.
with a lot of the meta jokes and humor. We were getting around that time a lot of kind of like Dark Castle remake films where it was like remakes of like old haunted house films. We were getting a lot of remakes
13
of J
Ghosts.
horror.
Yeah, we got 13 Ghosts. We got House on Haunted Hill, The Grudge.
The best.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of one of those and also this was like 1 year before we started getting the remake craze of remakes of just every fucking slasher that would dominate the 2000s. So this was just really something different that came out, and I think it really threw a lot of people off just because it's a very gory, dark comedy. Because I remember like when I watched it as a teenager, I was like, oh, I want to check this out. I remember my dad was like, that sucked.
Yeah.
And
it put Eli Roth on the map though, which I suppose is good for him. I like the makeup in it, like when her face is falling off and all that. That's gnarly.
The shaving scene when she's shaving her legs and it just skit.
That was good. That was really good.
There are good scenes in it for sure. And the idea is kind of an interesting idea, this like parasitic thing that just eats your body away.
Bacteria.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about melt movies in general, though, is like where body horror is about like the loss of control of your body. Melt movies is just about the disintegration. It's like the end result of us just like turning into diarrhea people. like that's the thing that just scares us. It's the further result of like I'd be terrified if I turned into a fly. It'd be even worse if I was cognizant while I disintegrated. That'd be awful. Like and when a movie can show that effectively, like in Street Trash, like The Stuff, like The Blob, 1977, there's a movie called The Incredible Melting Man, and it's about a guy who comes back from space and he got too much gamma radiation, and didn't gain any superpowers. What a rip! And instead, he just starts to melt. And the movie mostly is him like escaping the hospital and then like popping up in somebody's backyard.
Yeah,
like,
just wandering.
Yeah, and melting, which is great. I mean, I love it. It's a classic poster. I think the poster is one of the most classic things about it. The melting's pretty good. There's like all these stages of him falling apart, which I enjoy. But it's a bizarre one. It's the editor of Famous Monsters in Filmland before Corey Taylor got it was I got him Phil, and this was Phil's favorite movie. And it was always interesting to talk to him about it, which is just like because again, it's most of the movie is just him wandering around and popping up, and
it's a lot of wandering.
lot of wandering.
It's a lot of wandering.
Not as much wandering. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying we were talking about practical effects and compared to VFX, and I'm like, what melt movies have come out recently that have used just like CGI to show melting? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head because I think as we were talking about this, it's really hard to show melting without using practical effects because it's something like that like is very science based, like to see that our eyes are going to know, like physics based. It's like with explosions, like when it's a fake explosion. Like it just doesn't look real at all. And I can't really think of anything. Cabin Fever is probably like the most recent like melt movie.
Oh, I got another one that came out 5 years later.
Oh, what was that?
Planet Terror.
Oh my God, yes. What a phenomenal movie. That's some gross ass melting too.
Yeah. Really fun. I mean, Planet Terror's first the first half of the Grindhouse series.
The best half.
Yeah, has some of the best melting. I love it. It was really gross. I mean, especially when you see Quentin Tarantino die and he's just like,
oh my God, so good. God, no. So good.
Or he pulls down his pants and you see his like
his wang doodle
off. Junk falling apart. Yeah. Just terrifying. K&B effects rocking it there. That is a great melting movie.
That movie's phenomenal. I didn't even think about that when talking about melt movies. What such a good movie. Everything about that's such a tight script.
Yeah, and it knows exactly the fun that it wants to have. And it has that fun. But I mean that's just like the strength of oh my God, I just brain farted his name.
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez, thank you.
Yeah.
It was like it was there, and then it just was like bye. Woo.
Yeah, no, everything about that movie, the music, that saxophone, like throughout the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
movie, or it's like becomes a
film.
character of its own.
That like film grain throughout the entire movie.
Oh
like,
yeah,
perfect.
real missing, and it's just all of a sudden you're into chaos.
Yeah, real missing because that was so perfect too because it's like skip all the bullshit they would have to like set up while we're getting there. Machine gun for a leg, come
Beautiful.
on! Like that movie started out so strong, and then you get to the second half, and then you have these amazing fake trailers. I mean, the first time we saw Thanksgiving, the first time we saw Machete, and then all of a sudden you get to Terror, Death Proof, and it just brings that tempo so far down.
God.
And it was like if you had
I love
started,
Death Proof.
Death Proof Death Proof is.
I love Death Proof.
If you swapped these, that movie would have been 100% A++ out of the park.
I could see that
win because if you started out and you're like, yeah, I get the vibe you're going for, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, these trailers are awesome, and then Planet Terror came in and just kicked your teeth out. That would have been the way to do it.
You know what's funny is now that you say that, it's like back in the day, the reason we call B movies is because it would be the second movie after your A movie, which was like
bill,
the ones with the stars and the people you knew and XYZ. And like definitely Quentin's, even though I'm not a big fan of Quentin Tarantino, but his movie should have been first because you had Kurt Russell as the lead. You had the star celebrity there, and then you go into the B movie, which is the schlock fest, melt your face off movie.
Yep.
Which that I don't know. I don't know why they did that. That's a bizarre choice.
Planet Terror had a stat cast too, though. Like
really
you had
stacked.
Bruce Willis.
Oh yeah.
You had an appearance by Fergie, who was probably the biggest pop star in the world at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it.
And she was great too in it.
I don't think any of those people were really like the. It's just Rose McGowan was like the only one you knew was in it, and then you like
Freddie
Bruce Willis. I didn't know was in it until
was in
later. Like he takes the mask off, and you're like, oh shit, it's Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Surprise cameos are always fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Josh Brolin in it too, but that was kind of before.
That's right.
Like,
one of my favorite lines ever came from that movie. The little kid's playing with alien toys, and he's like, "I want to eat your brain and gain your knowledge."
Yeah, I want to eat your brain and gain your knowledge. And then he kills himself in the car.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Playing with a gun.
Oh, so gnarly. That movie didn't give up. That movie was just like,
no, it didn't give a shit.
We're gonna show you melting balls.
So good.
And I saw that at the Rialto in South Pasadena, which is like a cool old theater, which is like rad, just so rad. Actually, the Rialto, if you watch Nightmare on Elm Street 4, it's the movie theater that Alice goes in and then she gets sucked into the screen. That's the movie theater I saw Grindhouse in.
Hell yeah.
It was like, yeah. Nice. That place always has leaks in the ceiling though, so wear a raincoat.
Trash cinema at a trash cinema.
At its best. Let's see, 1993, there was a movie out of
Australia.
Australia. Yeah.
Body Melt.
Yeah, Body Melt.
Have you guys seen it?
Oh yeah, I saw it. Chase saw it.
I did not like that movie.
It's terrible.
Oh,
no, it's awful.
Thing. So here's the thing. I looked it up and watched it.
I'm sorry.
And I messaged Aaron after, like, while I was watching it, and I was like, Aaron, I'm watching Body Melt right now, and I have no fucking clue what's going on.
No idea.
Aaron's like, yeah. He was like, I should have warned you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Melt movies are a great subgenre, but a lot of them are bad. But like, you can have fun with bad movies, but when you're watching it alone, Body Melt is. Here's the thing. Body Melt is one of those movies. It's so slow that you'll like look away, but then when you look back, you're like, did the movie change? What movie am I watching? Is this the same movie?
Completely.
Because it goes all over the place. There's a whole thing with like Outback. I don't know what they're called in Australia, but hillbillies. Yeah, they get stuck with these like Outback hillbillies who are like Texas Chainsaw Massacring them, but it's more like Nothing But Trouble instead of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Very bizarre, like pacing, very bizarre scene changes, no plot, but just a lot of weird melting happening, which I'm down for, and some cool stop motion melting. But just go look up like those parts on YouTube and don't watch the movie.
Yeah, the movie. I
It's on
I
Shudder.
think I
if you
watched
wanna
it because
watch
of all these other melting movies that I had seen. I was like, oh, I want to watch more. And then I looked up, I saw Body Melt, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll watch that. And I was just like, whoa, oh my God, this is awful. This
If you want
sucks.
a nice little palate cleanser, there 2012 there was a movie short, it's 5 minutes, came out called BioCop, which is hysterical, and it's about it's basically the joke is it's an incredible melting man, but he's a cop and he still goes to his job, and every time they cut to him, they're like, "What do you think, Billy?" And he's just like, "Ah!" and just melting, and they just keep cutting back to him, and he's just screaming and melting.
Amazing.
BioCop is hysterical. It's 5 minutes long. Go find that on YouTube and just it's a great palate cleanser. If you just watch like a horrible, shitty body melt movie and you're like, what do I watch now? Watch Biomelt. You'll be like, I'm back on the genre. I'm back, baby.
Yes.
I'm adding that to the letterbox list, and my new tradition, I will be put on. If you go to the comments on X after the show, you will see the letterbox list of all the films we talked about today.
Oh,
Heck
sick.
yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, we've been throwing them up on Letterboxd.
All
there's-
about it.
There's a company called Necrostorm, and I don't know if you guys know these movies. It's for gorehounds only. So my sick puppies out here watching, and you might probably have heard of Necrostorm. They're a company that just does really gross, gory movies out of maybe Russia, maybe I don't know. Anyway, they have a movie called Mildew from Planet Zonander, and it is a fantastically gory melt movie with lots of really cool practical effects. It's an adult dose of like gross out stuff, but
Interesting.
done with all the heart. And they had some really good. His gore is on par with stuff that you're just like, I have to pause it, rewind it, because he's doing it with no
Oh,
money.
wow.
But I'm like, pause, rewind, pause, rewind. He did a movie called Tater City. If anybody's heard of that movie, one of the goriest films ever made, and it's just like, but like he's a genius about how he does cross cuts of how he'll hide the real person and then swipe to a dummy, punch in for a close up of a knife going into the eyeball for 5 minutes. Again, not great, but like to study the craft of how you make a gory film, how to make gore effective.
Mm-hmm.
I give high props to the Necrostorm team. Yeah, they're an adult dose for sure. Not for the faint of heart, not just like a fun throw it on with your friends, but like, again, like I appreciate good gore, so I do end up in it quite a bit. They have a lot of movies. They've made a lot of movies. Yeah, Necrostorm. Check them out.
I will, definitely. Hell yeah.
All right.
All right. What else we got? We got a few minutes left. Any more honorable mentions?
Well, I mean, we didn't really talk about Troll 2. That's kind of a very interesting movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. Like, watch it with a group of friends. It's out of control. But they eat what was they have to eat? They go to Nilbog, and
which is goblin backwards. Goblin spelled backwards.
Yeah, and they're trying to get fed like plant food. It's like green stuff
I'll be right back, guys.
they make look like food. I haven't seen it in a minute. What?
I can't remember any of the details other than going to.
I just know that they're supposed to eat. If they eat this certain food, it turns them into pretty much liquid goo, and they melt.
Yep.
And then the plant people, the goblins, eat these people.
Yep, that's how the goblins make food. Yeah.
Yeah, they just turn into piles of goo, and then you have the classic lines like, "They're eating her, and then they're gonna eat me." Oh my god!
The thing is, like, it's touted as one of the worst films ever made, but it's actually so fun that it's worth it. Like, it's so bad, it's good in all the best ways. It's like Mac and Me in that sense, where you're just like,
oh my god,
none of the choices.
One of my favorite movies ever.
Oh yeah. When he dresses up as the horrifying teddy bear.
And McDonald's commercial.
Yeah. Oh, so bad.
That movie's phenomenal.
Oh, and I love when the kid gets blown away by all the cops. It's just...
Oh, well, see, that's only in the Japanese version. In the American version, he doesn't get shot.
He doesn't die.
Well, I think he dies, but you don't understand why, and then Mac has to bring him back to life, and you don't understand what's going on. Like, they really need to make a sequel of that movie though, because it ends where it says we'll be back, and they never come back. They never got a sequel to Mac and Me.
35 years later, we get a legacy sequel.
Dude, I would write that in a heartbeat. Like, what a ridiculous movie.
Yeah, but it would just be like a CGI bullshit. Like
No CGI, no CGI. The original costumes, them walking around like all like weird, like
they were so uncomfortable to watch. It was like the sea monkeys. Like there's something very uncomfortable about their nudity.
So good though. I showed that to my little sister and she loved it. And I think she was like 18, 17 at the time. And she's like, "What are we watching?" And I'm like, "Mac and Me, of course." And she's like, "What is happening?" And by the end of it, she was like cheering for the family of aliens that get their citizenship. Very different time in America where actual aliens were allowed to get citizenship.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's not a Melt movie. I don't know how we got.
No. Because you talked about Mac and Me, but like the stuff we didn't touch on the stuff.
The stuff's great, man.
Oh yeah. I was actually just watching that before we went rewatching that before we went on air.
Oh.
I love the stuff, man. That health food yogurt, and then you eat it and you melt, and then it turns into a sentient blob. The stuff is really underrated. It's not fantastic like the Blob remake, but in its own right, it's really fun. It moves pretty fast. The characters are pretty forgettable, but the effects are great. And at the end of the day, I think that makes for a good creature feature monster movie. And it doesn't set out to do anything overly ambitious, but crushes everything it does right. So I love the stuff. The stuff's great.
Yeah, stuff's fun. Watch. It's a fun movie. It's very 80s, like stylistically, like the whole like what's happening in culture. It's all very much at the forefront of like them selling the stuff as an actual marketable product.
80s commercials, very 80s styles commercials.
Love that. Yeah, you just held up Videodrome a second ago.
Yes, I did.
That fantastic Cronenberg-y. Wait, is it Cronenberg or is it
Cronenberg?
Yeah, it's Cronenberg. Yeah, I was like, is it going to be Lynch or is it going to be Cronenberg? Great Cronenberg. Got some gross body horror, and I mean that is a staple of body horror. That's one of the penultimate all hail the new flesh body horror films. Definitely has a little bit melting in it a little bit.
Yeah, y'all are gonna laugh at me when I tell y'all the reason why that movie drew me in. It's like, oh, I gotta watch this. It wasn't because of David Cronenberg. I'm a huge fan of Blondie, and the fact that Debbie Harry is one of the stars. I was like, I gotta see this.
That's great, though. You know what?
Top of the list.
I love that. You know what?
Must watch because of Debbie Harry.
I didn't know I forgot or didn't know that she was in this movie. That is funny, man. Yeah. Videodrome's great. It's one of those movies that just really messes with your head, and you're just like, wait, what? Like, it's so hard to explain to people what it is. The problem is when you look up an actress who is also a musician, IMDb's like, here's all their music videos. And it's like, I know they were in music videos. Tell me the movies they were in. Get those music videos out of here. And they're like, no, we can't separate them like that. Because it's like, here she is on The Muppet Show. Here's all her music videos. I'm like, just tell me the movies that she was in. They're like, we don't want to do that. It's like, all right, fine. Well, I'll figure that out later.
Debbie Harry and Harry and call me.
Debbie Harry and Debbie Harry. And you're like,
what do you guys think is the big difference between a Melt movie and just general body horror?
Because body horror is about the transformation, where Melt is about the disintegration. You're gone. When the end result of a body horror movie is a new flesh, a new version of you. It's about it's about the loss of control of your body, but your body still exists. It's just in a new form. Whereas a Melt movie is your body no longer exists and you're gone, and you had to be cognizant through your body melting in a quick way too. It's like in it all comes down to the fear of loss of your body, loss of your faculties, loss of control, aging. Aging takes forever. You slowly watch, my knees don't go downstairs without making horrible noises. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That happens the second you hit 40. And you're like, oh man, your eyes start to go the second you hit 40. And now, but like if that happened instantly and then your skin fell off, like that's the difference between a melt movie.
So that when you say that, it makes me wonder if that's why melt movies are usually bad and like just ridiculous. Is because it's such a foreign concept to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can see our bodies transform. Like you may gain weight or like you lose an arm, whatever. Like there can be disfigurement happening, and you would understand that. But with a melt movie, it's like we're never gonna melt. Like maybe, but like. It's such a hard concept. I think that's maybe why it's always so over the top and not really as serious as like a body horror, like a Cronenberg movie is usually very serious. It has a lot of subtext and there's like a lot of things going on with those types of movies compared to a melt movie. It's just people are melting.
It's also the difference between like you said, there's body horror can have a highbrow thing to it because the loss of our body, whereas I think melt movies are almost literally like a shit adjective. It's poop jokes. On your body, and it's the difference between like body horror is touring a slaughterhouse, body melt movies are falling in the pig pen. and it's just a gross out reaction. It's not invoking your thought. It's like, this is disgusting. And I think it's going straight for the jugular and the end result, which is just a puddle of gross on the floor.
Depending on what movie you're watching. If we're watching Street Trash, it could be blues and pinks and greens.
True. Yeah.
You never
which
know.
I love. That was such a good touch. I would have never
Oh yeah.
I would have never approved that. I would have been like, no, it's got to be blood red. But then you're like, you know what? It works. It works for this.
It's silly.
Movie.
It's what makes the movie like more like fun to be in, like that world, and just like blood,
Yeah. So gross, so wild.
That one guy who's melting through the stairs, the fire escape stairs, on top of another guy's face, and then that guy runs to a cop. I don't know if you guys remember this scene, but then there's this woman who's like, help him, do something. And the cop's just like, what am I going to do? He's fucking melting. Like, I can't do anything.
Not care.
Yeah. He doesn't give a shit. He's like, what am I going to do, woman? She's like freaking out.
We mentioned this on our body horror, but a really good ooey gooey one, Society, 1989.
Oh, yeah.
The shunting is so gross. Has some melting in it, but also body horror all over the place. Screaming
like
Mad
a combination
George.
of the both. Like they're melting into each other. Is just
play with the guts. The Beyond has some really nasty, melty, gooey gooiness in it. Love that movie.
1981.
Yeah. The Beyond is really good.
All right, put on the list.
The Beyond's great. Stuart Gordon, Brian Usna. It's based on H.P. Lovecraft, but not at all. It's in concept only. But it's got
Barbara Gordon in that movie.
Yeah. Barbara Crampton and
Crampton. Sorry, I just got Stuart Gordon.
Gordon, Barbara Crampton in it, and Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
Great.
That's a good one.
Fantastic. I love that movie. Super nasty. And Ken Foree from Dawn of the Dead fame. What an awesome guy he is. He's super fun. But there we have it, guys. That's the melt movies. That was
a fun one.
It's fun. They really are gross and fun. But watch.
Yeah, if you guys have not watched Street Trash, anybody watching, you definitely got to go watch Street Trash. You can literally go watch it on YouTube right now.
Yep.
It's free.
It's on Screenbox if you have
a
Screenbox account.
Yeah. Probably on Shudder.
Yeah, hit it.
I got one more that I want to talk. We were actually just talking about it before we went on air, and you made a good point. It's not something, Chris, because you got to see something a little bit early. Couple years before everyone else will. Toxic Avenger.
The original Toxic Avenger.
The original Toxic Avenger.
The original is just a classic because it's so heartfelt, and it's even though it's so terrible, it's just there's so much heart in it, and
it's fun.
it set trauma on the map, and you got to give them props for doing what they do. And Lloyd Kaufman's the man for that. And I love the original. I was more of a fan of the cartoon. I always watched the cartoon when I was a kid, which was super fun.
And they had action figures as well back in the day.
I have them in a closet.
Funko Pop. I have a Funko Pop sitting on one of my shelves.
Yeah. And then my parents were like, "What the heck are you watching?" And then they said, "Shouldn't be watching that." It was so good though. It was so fun. It was the better version of Captain Planet to me, because Captain Planet was like a cheese ball, and Toxie was just cool, man. He had gross friends and a booger dog.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's a great movie. Like that, the first one is just so fun and just like silly and goofy, and the whole concept, this blind woman is in love with a dude who's completely disfigured, completely melted, who runs around on fire for like 2 minutes through the city with what was that? The Flight of the Bump or Flight of the what is that song called?
Flight of the Valkyries, yeah.
Valkyries.
It's Flight of the Bumblebee. Yeah, Flight of the Bumblebees, and he's wearing a tutu and he's got a big old mop. Like,
he has a tutu burned into him.
So I saw the new remake that everyone's apparently excited for. I saw this a couple years ago at one of those test screenings, and it just does not. Personally, I didn't think it lived up to that OG one. It just doesn't have the same heart. It does have a bit of a different story going on. There's a lot of B story that you guys will see that the original really didn't explore. But Toxie himself is where I kind of have the issues with not Peter Dinklage's performance, but just what they did. You guys will see. We can talk about this when it comes out. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's excited to see it. So,
funny enough, KG just brought up the RoboCop melting scene, and the cop from the Blob is the guy who melts in RoboCop. Yeah,
that's his job, is to be the melting guy.
I love it. And that makeup done by the incredible Bart Mixon, who did the original Pennywise the Clown. He did a lot of the RoboCop stuff.
Oh wow!
He was in charge of the RoboCop suit and the melting guy. And I got to talk to him on my other show. But yeah, seeing him melting and then get hit by the car and he just explodes. Just cracked me up every time. Bart Mixon has a great story about RoboCop where Paul Verhoeven, the director, is waving the prop arm around that is supposed to stab the guy in the neck, and he's and then this happened, and then this happens, and the spike goes and misfires and goes off like inches from his face. And then he's like, I'm going to explain the scene while not holding this. And he puts it down, just keeps going. But like, he's like, he almost just got impaled in the face by a giant spike.
Jesus Christ.
Like, oh my God. Just horrifying how close he was to just catch it.
I mean, he's a wild man. So
I love
his movies are all fantastic.
Yeah, we could get into some Paul Verhoeven, man. RoboCop,
Total Recall,
Starship Troopers, Veronica. If you're into horny nuns, I love Paul Verhoeven. So there we go, guys. Let's do some plugs. Chris, anything you got? Anything you got to plug?
Nothing exciting yet. In the works. Man.
Yeah, isn't that way all? Let's hope it all goes. I love your activator bottle, by the way, Chase. I just noticed that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great. Stay hydrated.
Oh, nice.
And look.
Oh yeah. Gotta pump
I'll put the Etsy link and the Twitter and the Twitter thing too if anyone wants to get it.
I love it.
Cool.
I Chase, that. What are your plugs? Let's let the people know where to follow you.
Yeah, first of all, Chris, thank you for joining us again. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. You can see me here every Saturday with you, Aaron, on Half Hour of Horror on blockofhorror.com virtual world.
Oh yeah.
YouTube at Block of Horror, Twitter or X, at Block of Horror. And follow me on all socials, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, X, Instagram, all that at Oh Hey It's Chase.
Oh hey, it's Chase. You can follow me Facebook, Instagram, X, all that stuff at Launchpad Pod, website launchpadpod.com, and my other show. We've been on hiatus for a while. We're planning to come back in February, big time. Got some fun stuff in the works there, and we will be rocking it for you guys. And then, of course, every Saturday here with, oh, hey, it's Chase. And yeah, we got some fun stuff coming up. We have some fun guests we're talking to. Chris, you're welcome back anytime you want.
Yes.
Hell
always
yeah.
Good, always good to chat.
What do you got going on next week?
We don't know yet. We got to figure
Oh,
it
no.
out. It depends on if a guest comes through, we know what we're talking about. If the guest can't make it, then we got to figure out something else. There's a plan A and a plan B in the works, but we got to sit down and come up with a roadmap for the season because it's always good stuff with all the new horror coming out. I mean, we're gonna have to do a special Valentine's Day episode, of course, talking about My
Hard
Bloody
Eyes.
Valentine. Hard Eyes. I mean, one of my
Bride of Chucky.
Bride of Chucky.
Technically.
Oh yeah, Valentine. Why not? There's so many good ones. My Bloody Valentine is one of my favorites all time, so that'd be a fun.
Which one?
The original, but
original.
I also like the 3D one. I'm not
The
mad
3D
at
one was fantastic.
The 2009
Okay.
one's really good still.
Yeah, super solid.
I
We
will
get
never
into it.
I
Yeah.
will never complain about getting Mustache Daddy Tom Atkins on screen. I will never
Right?
complain.
Never complain. I also love any movie that is no longer in 3D when I see it. So there's all this like, hey, whoa, coming at you. Anytime a movie will do that, I'm like so stoked. And of course, like Friday the 13th Part 3 3D is one of the worst offenders of that, where they're like, you want this joint? And then it's like the people like stabbing at the camera, and they're like, I love it when the technology is lost on the current viewer.
Yeah, the schlock has been elevated.
I love the 2009 one, but I have bad memories. I used to work at a movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
I used to work the box office. So that was around the time the real D kind of became a fad. And I would get bitched at almost weekly about, why the hell do I got to pay $2.50 more for this movie? I can't help it. I can't do anything, dude.
I don't make the rules.
I'm just a lowly box office boy.
Yeah. We got to give away some blood coin. If you guys go to our Discord, open up a ticket and send in the word melt, get some blood coin for you there. Super exciting. Melt. And yeah, guys, we will check you next week. Chris, stay on for just a second after the titles. I want to chat real quick about that. But until next time, guys, so good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.